Hello everyone, welcome to the Cinema Analysis channel. I am Juzo. This channel will explore the hidden truths of films that are not usually revealed. Today I want to talk about Goldfinger. This is one of the films that most explores the truth of domination. If you haven't seen the film and don't want to know the story, I suggest you watch the film first before watching this video. So let's get started. James Bond is assigned to keep an eye on a man known as Goldfinger. This man is involved in gold smuggling, and it is MI6's intention to get evidence of this and confiscate the gold. Bond approaches Goldfinger and begins to investigate him. This is discovered and Bond is taken into custody, but he escapes and a back and forth battle ensues. Goldfinger is about to carry out what he calls Operation Grand Slam. The idea is to nuke the gold bars at Fort Knox in the US, rendering them useless and driving up the price of his own gold. Locked in a vault, he and the gold are about to be contaminated with nuclear material. Will Bond be able to stop the evil? Some difference lies between the film and the original story. Smaller difference is the death of Jill Masterson. Bond just heard about it from her sister in the original story, yet he saw her corpse in the film. Jill was a servant of Goldfinger, but was deemed to have betrayed him. She was covered in gold paint and died from skin suffocation. This scene gave a shock all over the world and made Shirley Eaton, who played the role, famous. However, humans rarely breathe through their skin. Most of our breathing takes place in our lungs. Therefore, it is impossible for a person to die from being covered with gold dust. However, this scene became tremendously famous enough to let many people believe that human being can be killed from skin suffocation. And a big difference. In the original, Goldfinger tries to rob all the gold in Fort Knox. But Richard Maibaum, one of the film's screenwriters, thought this was impossible. According to Bond's line in the film, it would take 12 days to move all the gold in Fort Knox. So Maibaum had a brilliant idea. It was to do the exact opposite, to make a huge amount of gold unusable. This would increase the value of Goldfinger's gold. This change made the story much more realistic. It should be particularly mentioned that the changed story has reached to draw the construction of the world of domination. Goldfinger is a wealthy person and has a lot of gold. The era in which this film was made was still the era of the gold standard. The guarantee of the value of money was gold. This means that gold is exactly the same as money. The definition of rich is having a lot of money compared to others, never the absolute amount. If others have the same amount of money, they are not rich. The condition of rich people is the existence of disparity. The condition to produce the difference is not only to increase the amount of your money. Reducing other people's money also creates difference. The writer Maibaum focused on this, and he came up with the idea of contaminating other people's gold. I said earlier that gold and money are the same thing. What Goldfinger tried to do is what happens in the real world of money. The reason why rich are rich is because there is a gap between them and the poor. So by creating and widening that gap, the rich get richer. This is what the Gospel of Matthew says. This is what is happening all over the world. It is said that only 1% of the people monopolize 99% of the wealth. The money is then issued by the country's central bank. There are exceptions to this rule, such as the Eurozone countries. The relative value of money falls when the central bank increases the amount of money it issues. Or more precisely, the value of money falls if the money supply increases more than the amount of goods and services produced by the country's citizens. That is why the rich do not want the money supply to increase. They do not want the value of their money to fall. They don't talk about it much because they want to stay rich. They don't want you to know their secret. Of course, there are rich people who want the whole world to get richer. But those who want to be at the top of the inequality ladder will naturally work to maintain and increase it. Increasing the money supply reduces the value of money, but it also means increasing the value of goods and services. Most of the world's people are not rich. They get money by supplying goods and services and exchanging them. Increasing the value of goods and services makes most people in the world richer. If you have enough money, you can get what you want, and someone who has the money will continue to consume. So the economy keeps moving. Everyone gets richer. But it means reducing the wealth of a few rich people. It reduces their relative superiority, to be precise. And the ruling class doesn't like that. Money has three functions: variation, storage of value, and exchange of value. And the amount of money to be issued is determined by the discretion of the organization authorized to issue it. It is never something that doesn't exist more than fixed quantity, like natural resource. Money can be created in a matter of seconds if the central bank puts paper and ink into a printing press. Today, not even banknotes are needed. Modern electronic money can be created in a matter of seconds by simply tapping on a computer keyboard. However, many ordinary people believe that money, like a natural resource, is finite and will disappear when people spend it. Of course, money in your bank account will disappear when you spend it. But governments never run out of their own currency. To be precise, a government that has the right to issue its own currency never runs out of money. For example, Japan's central bank is a private organization, but it is owned by the government. The situation is different in the USA. As the Federal Reserve System's website says, it is not owned by anyone, including the US government. Similarly, the governments of EU countries do not have the right to issue currency. In 1964, when this film was made, the era was still on gold standard. At the time, a country could only issue currency in proportion to the amount of gold it held. There was a limit to the amount of money that could exist in the world. There have always been controversies about the merit of the gold standard. One of the most famous was between Churchill and Keynes. John Maynard Keynes, an English economist, completely rejected the gold standard in his 1923 book, A Tract on Monetary Reform, saying it was a barbarous relic. In 1971, the US stopped exchanging gold for dollars. This was the Nixon shock. The world then moved to a floating exchange rate system. The central bank of each country can issue currency according to its circumstances. By issuing more currency than it can supply causes excessive inflation and the currency loses value. It is therefore important to issue money in quantities that correspond to the country's supply capacity. In countries that have the capacity to produce, technological innovation takes place. Even if they don't, people get better and more productive by doing the same thing over and over again. Therefore, the production of goods and services will inevitably increase. If the currency is not issued accordingly, deflation will develop and the economy will deteriorate. It is the rich who benefit from a rise in the value of the currency. The rich and the ruling class do not want to undermine their own advantage, so they make sure that the value of money does not fall. An economic deterioration of the whole society can't hurt the rich. The loss of their advantage is a much more serious problem for them. A gradual increase in the money supply benefits the whole society in which you live. But someone who is already wealthy and is only pursuing his own advantage should never increase the amount of currency. Of course, those in the ruling classes of society are rich, so their convenience takes precedence. Something that is mainly done as a method is to repeat a slogan that says, "You should never undermine the confidence of the currency." They say that forbidden means to increase the money supply undermine confidence in the currency, which brings chaos to society. It will not be able to function. Cutting welfare is also important for the ruling class. The slogans used to achieve this are, "There is not enough money in the country." "People should succeed through individual efforts." "We should not be beggars in society," "Communism," and so on. The government's financial difficulties are a lie, which is impossible. But many people are made to believe it. Of course, there is diversity and difference between each person to earn money, so we should accept the consequences. Self-help is necessary, but no one lives alone. Successful people wouldn't have been successful without the help of society and the environment. These kinds of slogans to increase inequality are made by the ruling class because they don't want to lose their advantage. And those who are brainwashed by the ruling class say the same. The continuation of this inequality undermines the wealth of the whole society. Then, one by one, the children or grandchildren of the present ruling class will fall into the exploited class, but the ruling class doesn't seem to care. They believe that only person who should benefit is themselves who are alive now. Or they seem to think that only their children can remain in the ruling class. They seem to think that they have nothing to do with the fact that the society that brought them up is becoming poor. Of course, those who have ability or worked hard should be rewarded. But produced goods or services will never be consumed if the absolute amount of money is short. Jobs or businesses will disappear if they are not consumed. A situation has arisen where there is not even a chance to make an effort. In *Sapiens*, A Brief History of Humankind, written by Yuval Noah Harari, there is a chapter about hunter-gatherers. They lived off the food that was available in nature. This was a time before the production and storage of much food. At the time, he says, there was no food to store, so people who were unable to get food were killed. In this way, it was considered just to leave only the capable. The joy of the survivors was great and their unity strong. The rulers of this modern society may be similar, but what we have to consider is that the hunter-gatherer is now almost non-existent. Eventually, man began to farm. By making it possible to produce food and increasing the amount of it, they created a society in which people with low productivity could survive. These people destroyed hunter-gatherers, and that is how we got to the present day. Is there a country where people live by hunting alone, even if it is not an industrialized country? Groups dominated by the idea that the weak should die will perish, and they will be invaded by other groups. Some people may think it would be better to live happily among the invaders, but such a too good to be true story can't exist. Those who think only of their own benefit will be the first to be killed. Some people think it is good enough to live without belonging to any society. You may have heard the word perpetual traveler. It is a way of living by traveling all over the world, spending short periods in each country to avoid legal obligations such as paying taxes. It's a concept that goes hand in hand with globalism. You can leave the country when it suits you. This kind of method can only be used when the world is rich enough to some extent. There will be no place for people who only want to do well for themselves. Goldfinger already has gold and business and more money than he could spend in a lifetime. But there is no limit to his desire. He is willing to make many people miserable in order to satisfy himself. Does that kind of thinking make people happy? That's what the original story and the better made film say. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked this video, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up.